Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're looking at the top 16 deck lists for the Ink Open core constructed 10k event. This was a large event, 226 players held across an entire weekend of Lorcana. As I said, the core constructed was a 10k, 9 rounds of Swiss followed by top 16. There was also a youth core constructed event which got 32 or 33 players, which was awesome to see, and there was an Infinity event on the Sunday, and this was a very special one for me because I was there. I had the honor of being invited to go along to join a stacked casting crew of incredible people. Other Europeans that went over were Kawa and Kim, who I'm so looking forward to being on the European DLC broadcast, but it was my first time actually working with them as a caster, so it was great to have them there as well. And of course, getting to work with JDZ Quest again, getting to work with Garrick's Lorcana Lair, getting to work with Color is Law, and I've got to give a shout out to J-Bomb, who was running interviews all day. I'm going to talk a lot more about my experience of the event. I've got some vlog footage to show and tell a couple of stories, and we're going to react to the eye-to-eye music video thing that Color is Law and Garrick's Lorcana Lair helped to make. If you haven't seen it, then hang around for that at the end. But I want to start off by focusing on the deck lists. As I said, there was also an Infinity event and a Youth Core Constructed event. I don't think I'm going to cover the Infinity event. I'm likely to cover Infinity as we get closer to DLCs, which are Infinity format. But I'm not sure if I don't think I'm going to cover this one unless there are like a surge of comments on this video like, no, Baker, I need your coverage of this Infinity. If not, I'm probably going to leave it. I do want to cover the juniors, and and that's just top 8. I will just do the top 8, and I will combine that with something else. I'm not sure with it before the end of the week. So today, because this was a large event, 226 players, I'm going to look at the top 16 lists. I'm going to start off by saying a lot of Blurple, an awful lot of elephants in the room. The biggest shock to me is no Amethyst Steel in this top 16. Was absolutely shocking to me. We've got a lot of Blurple lists to look at, with the second place being Amethyst Steel. We have one Ruby Amethyst deck to look at and one Blue Steel ally. So those should be exciting. I said last week, hey, it's Amethyst heavy. We all know Amethyst is strong, could be a problem, but let's give people time to adapt. Let's see if people can take the week 1 data and apply that to week 2 and see if there's much of a change. Obviously, so far, it doesn't seem to be the case. And I said, if we get to like week 3 and it's still like this, then we probably have a problem. Now, I admit we probably do already have a problem, but I want to be optimistic until at least week 3. But on the low key, we have a problem. Nonetheless, we're going to get into it. A shout out to the channel sponsor Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's look at the top 16 deck lists. So while Blurple was by far and away the most popular deck in the top 16, it was taken home by some Amber Steel, which is the third deck in our apparent rock, paper, scissors meta. And coming in first, we have David with some Amber Steel aggro. So let's take a look at this. I think it's important to start with the Tiana because she really is one of the most important pieces that really has just amplified this deck's power. Amber Steel aggro has been doing well for a while anyway. Even post-rotation, it's kept a lot of its very aggressive tools. But the meta being what it is and Tiana being quite hard to answer unless you're seeing Sisu, Daring Visitor, which pretty much no one's running Ruby, so that's not a very safe bet. She can, of course, also be removed by Strength for the mirror match or if there is Amethyst Steel, but Blurple, they have Into the Unknown. There are a couple of answers for Tiana that are in the most popular decks, but she still, if she does get to do what she wants, you probably just win the game on the spot. She's so incredibly powerful. 3 cost uninkable, 1/4 quest for 2. While she's exerted, if an opposing character challenges, the player has to pay 3 ink or the character gets -3 strength this turn. So we've talked in the past about how we are in a bit of a build-a-wall meta. You don't turn things sideways quickly. You build up your characters to the point where you can turn them sideways most efficiently and have the most things survive and make it more difficult for your opponent to be able to deal with that particular board state. And Tiana absolutely screams that. You set up these pieces. Really, the core of it is after your 1 and 2 drop and you play Tiana, getting down the Pluto is just so hard for them to deal with. Even if they do have the strength to be able to get all the Into the Unknown, they've got to pick between the Pluto and the Tiana. They're probably getting rid of the Tiana, but then they've still got to get through this 5/5 Pluto, which is probably taking a 2-for-1 investment before they're getting through to your aggro characters like the Penny, the Nala, and the Daisy Ducks. So you're going to see a lot of players just build this wall, curve out, not play anything until they can go Tiana and then into Pluto. This deck is running 4 copies of Jim Deer, 2 cost inkable, 0/4 quest for 1 with Bodyguard, which is a way that you could get away with an early quest of Daisy Duck, of course, if they miss their 1-drop, or their 1-drop isn't sufficient to take care of Daisy Duck, and you're not fearing like a Hypnotic Strength or something like that, a combat trick of some description, copyright Ed The 1/4 on Daisy is she's most likely to be able to get a cheeky quest out in the early game anyway, but Jim Deer can make that more likely. But by and large, just stack up your wall, get your Tiana Pluto curve, and then just run amok with incredible amounts of lore. I mentioned Daisies, we've got Mulans here, which is another character which can of course filter us through, find pieces that we need, and we don't turn this sideways until we get past the Tiano Pluto, or this is a character that can check opposing characters. Bazils, Royal Guards, Captain Hooks, those sort of things. Or even punishing an opposing Aurora, who we are running as well. 4 copies, 1 cost inkable, 1/2 quest for 1. Whenever she quests, you pay 1 less for the next princess or queen you play this turn. So this is a way to enable turn 2 Tiana. Don't get me wrong, you probably still don't then do anything with the Tiana for a couple more turns, because you've gone Aurora and Tiana, you've not set up anything that's really questing big. You probably then use your next turn to set up like maybe a Daisy Duck and a Nala, or a Daisy and a Penny, something like that, and then you can maybe afford to turn the Tiana sideways, or maybe you wait even longer and then you make a Lady plus 1 or 2 drop play, involve the Jim Deer. There are lots of lines where you can make it so that it's more likely than not that your opponent isn't going to be able to answer the board on the turn that you turn sideways. And even in the later game, this Aurora just giving you more ink efficiency. The princesses and queens in this deck are, of course, Mulan, Tiana, and 3 copies of Snow White, Fairest in the Land. 4 cost inkable, 2/2 quest for 2. This character can't be challenged. This is super spicy, one of the best cards for a sealed format. Now, if your opponent's running something like cannons, which we are running, which is a way of offsetting opponent, like an opponent's Aurora. Pop an opposing Lady, an Iago Spectral Para, chip away the Pluto, so then it's not hopefully trading with your character. Lots of use for cannons. Is a really good turn 2 play. And yeah, an answer for Snow White, much more common, is going to be Strength of a Raging Fire, or indeed Into the Unknown. But they can't always have, well, sometimes they will. But the hope is, right, that they're not always going to have the answer for everything. Maybe they use their Into the Unknown or their Strength on Tiana, and then Snow White sits there and they don't have a way of answering this for a couple of turns. You're just setting up enough threats and hoping that they don't have enough things to knock them off. So I quite like Snow White as a spicy inclusion. Worth mentioning this Nala again, 2 cost uninkable, 0/2 quest for 2. And while she has no damage, she gets +1 lore and resist 1. So again, if you're setting up a quest for 3 behind your Tiano Pluto curve, then that's just absolutely insane. This card is absolutely bonkers. And we're also saying 3 copies of the dual ink Amber Steel Bolt. Down but not out. 3 cost inkable, 0/4 quest for 4. Count them 4, my guys. This character enters play exerted. A pretty small price to pay. The 0 strength is only really punished if they are running Sisus, but see my previous point, no one's running Ruby. 4 willpower is obviously hard to deal with. Again, Into the Unknown immediately deals with this. If they have a strength of 4 characters, again, it's only a 3 cost character. Like, cool, use it on my Bolt and then don't use it on my Tiana, whatever. If this guy gets to quest, especially behind a Pluto or a Tiana off curve, something like that, then that's pretty bonkers. So I like the inclusion. 2 copies of John Silver to stop the opponent challenging on the next turn, hopefully getting an extra quest out of something. I mentioned Jim Deer, also 4 copies of the Prince, who's a 2 cost uninkable, 0/5 for Bodyguard. So again, a lot of really annoying lines that you can create for your opponent and say, hey, even if you do deal with this Tiana or you pay the tax, you've still got to get around these multiple bodyguards if you want to be challenging her or anything else. So pretty spicy. 2 copies of I Won't Give Up, I Won't Give In, which is a song. Return a character card with cost 2 or less from your discard to your hand. Not something I'm seeing all that much, but again, plenty of characters here of 2 costs or less that are very significant. Doc in particular, which is our primary draw engine in this deck. Great to get those back, or a quest for 2 character, or a quest for 3 character like Nala. You love to see it. And then 2 copies of Rapunzel's Tower, which is a 2 cost inkable, 1 to move there, 8 willpower, no passive lore. Characters get +3 willpower while here. And in a deck that's basically never challenging outside of something like maybe a Mulan or the Silver or the Peach. These quest for 1 characters that already serve a purpose by coming down, but then can be a beat stick. But now even they sometimes maybe get a 2-for-1. But just boosting the willpower of your bodyguards, your Tiana, your Bolt, your Nala, just make them all the more difficult to get past. I really like this as a spicy tech. So yeah, this deck is absolutely bonkers. On the play, I think it's like one of the biggest uphill struggles in the world. You need to have like absolutely ideal starts. Like on the draw, like even on the draw, it's hard to beat. But like on the play, like you definitely need your right into the unknown on the right turn, or maybe even like chain multiple. If you're a steel-based deck, then you probably need to be playing like triple 1-drops on turns 1 on 2, and then 3-drop, and then like have enough strength. You need to hit strength or raging fire. You need to make sure you hit the right amount of bodies. Maybe again, even then it's hard, right? Because if you can build up to 5 bodies, which can be hard, you take out the Tiana, and then you've still got a Pluto sitting there. Like it really is such an uphill battle. There are cards that help, like cannons at the right time, Calhoun for catch-up mechanics, things like Hypnotic Strength for purple. Madam Mim Elephant can be very good against this sort of deck, and again with Blurple, if you can ramp quick enough that you can get very quick into the unknowns and Hades and chain them together, you're probably still filtering around that, like they're at 17, 18 lore, and you like they need you to miss like once. So it's such a hard matchup, and David taking it all the way, so a huge congratulations to him. We shall look at all of our Amber Steel decks in a row. In top 8, we have the legendary Skylar, otherwise known as Sky, Villain Club Original. This was my first time meeting Sky, which was an absolute pleasure and delight. Got the chance to hang around with him a bit, which was really, really cool. And I got to play a game against Sky as well. He 2-0'd me, I'm pretty sure. 2-0 or 2-1, he beat me, but what an honor. And yeah, we see a 2-line special, really clean. A lot of the same cards that we've already talked about, but let's look at the differences here. We are seeing 4 copies of Captain Hook. Just like hitting 3 is such an important number. I mean, I say that, there's things like Nala, of course, and Doc, but sometimes it's just about, like, sometimes even just making sure that you can 2-for-1 something, like 2 characters with 2 strength eating at 4, like, is not good enough. My camera's run out of battery. I'm going to finish this list and then I'll take a break and let it charge before I continue. But yeah, assuring that you're 2-for-1ing something. Maybe you're combining it along with a cannons. Like again, it's more just having cheap beat sticks, which is very important. We are running the Rhino Shift line, 4 copies of the 1-drop, who decreases the opponent's strength by 1 into the start of your next turn on play. There was one match that Sky played, I can't remember if it was top 16 or his top 8 game, where this decision was his longest turn of the game. It was so intricate. So yeah, very relevant ability, and also very relevant, of course, is the Floodborn Power Hamster. 4-cost inkable, 4/3, quest for 2, shift 2, and while he's got no damage, he's got resist 2, and this is one of the reasons it's really important to be able to hit 5 consistently, because you want to be able to one-shot the Rhino. This thing can absolutely run amok. We are running pennies as well, which can like heal any damage off the Rhino if they try to like get it across 2 turns, or maybe you make a challenge into something that's got 3 strength, and so you take 1 damage, but you lose your resist 2 because you've got damage on you now, and then Penny can just come and fix that up for you. So super clean. And 4 copies of the Troubadour, which is a really nice inclusion that I expect to see a lot more going on. 2-cost inkable, 1/3, quest for 1, and the Singer 4 keyword along with resist 1. There are only 2 songs in the deck, 2 copies of Be Our Guest and 4 copies of Strength for a Raging Fire, but this is absolutely enough, and Strength is relevant enough for this Troubadour to be really worth it. Setting up your Singer 3 more consistently, more safely, and on turn 2, as opposed to turn 3, where you probably want to be playing characters who want to quest, like a Lady plus 2-drop play. Or even just ensuring that you do have a character that can sing Strength for a Raging Fire. If you go Troubadour into 3-drop, maybe they're able to answer one of them. But it's so important to be able to sing the Strength for a Raging Fire yourself. And of course, a lot of our 3-drops we would rather be questing. There are some exceptions, of course. Things like Pete are fine for singing Strength. But I just love the Troubadour as an extra inclusion. The resist 1 makes it a little trickier to get rid of. And really speaks to just the importance of Strength for a Raging Fire. Like, it's going to be pretty good on the draw as well. And then, yeah, I mentioned the 2 copies of Be Our Guest. Before the event, Sky was playing When Will My Life Begin. That's what he had when I had a friendly against him on the Friday, on the arrival day. But yeah, he switched to 2 copies of Be Our Guest. Just really value being able to find key pieces like Pluto or Pete or Doc. And this deck quite often will end up topping anyway. So you want to have something that's a slightly better top deck to be able to dig towards whatever it is you need. An offensive piece, face a Strength of a Raging Fire. Again, the dock itself. So yeah, I like a couple of copies of Be Our Guest in here. And other than that, this deck just looking to do the same thing we were talking about with the first deck for Amber Steel. Just be the aggressor, like basically ignore the opponent other than like really cheap characters like Mulan and Captain Hook. Of course, we can challenge with Pete, and we have Fire the Cannons as a response card and a good turn 2 card. But this deck just be turning sideways. It's just about when it turns sideways and has that dreaded Tiana Pluto curve. But yeah, Sky, great guy, great player. It was really great to meet him. Huge congratulations to him. Okay, sorry about that. Also in top 8 on Amber Steel Aggro, we have another legendary player, Kurt Spies. I had the opportunity to finally meet Kurt for the first time at the World Championship. Such a great guy. This man just oozes all the charisma, all the aura in the world, and he's pretty good at card games as well. As I said, a World Championship player who's been around since the beginning. And yeah, Amber Steel Aggro, a lot of the same cards that we just talked about. We're seeing a lower count of Captain Hook, and instead of Pete's, we're seeing a Lawrence here, so a little more emphasis on stats themselves. We're also seeing 4 copies of Sven, 4 cost inkable, 3/3 quest for 2, and on play you can ready a chosen character. So this is great for being able to quest something, ready it, and then you like sing a song, or just to keep it safe for the turn. But a cool use for it pre-rotation was to re-ready Diablos, and that is relevant. Again, we can re-ready opposing Tianas, which sounds really, really spicy. I love the inclusion, and we are seeing those 2 copies of When Will My Life Begin, which I mentioned before. Sky was playing them in his original lists, which swapped over to Be Our Guest, but Kurt with the When Will My Life Begin, chosen character can't challenge during their next turn, draw a card. But yeah, Kurt, a fantastic player. I had an opportunity to face him on the Sunday in a friendly. He beat me 2-1, but they were pretty good games. I mean, they were kind of, I think game 1 was a bit of a wash, but I enjoyed all 3 of the games, and Kurt had Sky in his ear discussing lines and coaching him basically, and I had Ben from the Forbidden Mountain, and I was on Blurple, and yeah, it was a banger of a match. I learned a lot in that match. So yeah, I love Kurt to bits. Great guy. Congratulations to him on top 8. And our final Amber Steel deck list in top 16, we have Shane Bradley. Similar sort of list that we've already talked about. 2-line special. We're seeing the Jim Deere in here, but not the Prince. We're seeing the Rhino Shift line in addition to things like the Aurora for the earlier Tiana. Only 2 copies of Pluto I do think is low, just because of the sheer power of the one cost, 2 cost Tiana Pluto curve. I think it's like absolutely mad. So now more than ever, I like to see a higher count of Pluto, but everything else here looks good. 4 copies of Lilo, Escape Artist in here as well. This deck be going fast. Congratulations to Shane. Now going back to second place, the first of many Blurple lists, and we're starting off with Doug Rice. This deck is just so powerful at the moment. For a start, it's got some of the best removal in the game, the premier removal in my opinion in Hades, leaving a body on board. The quest for 2 and 3/6 stat line is super tricky to get around at the moment without Medusas and Mauis, but also 4 copies of Into the Unknown. More removal, it gives us an earlier line against an exerted Tiana, a point in the game where we might not have Hades online. So just these 2 cards make this deck very alluring. But yeah, Dumbo is indeed powerful. He's a 4 cost inkable, 3/3 quest for 1. Evasive, you can exert and pay 1 to draw a card and gain a lore, and you also give that same ability to your other characters with evasive. We do be having a lot of evasives in here, of course. 4 Genie for drawing cards and for a High Quester. 4 copies of Iago Giant Spectral Parrot, another evasive, and this 4/6 body, super relevant for taking out opposing Genies, Dumbos. You need answers to Dumbos, so having a lot of evasive yourself is a good way to do that. 4 copies of Elsa, of course, one of the most powerful cards in the game at the moment, with rush and evasive and exerting an opposing character on play. It's this card that's made me kind of play around with the 5-drop Ursula as kind of just like a 5th Elsa, just because the exert ability on its own is just so important. Obviously Elsa has like rush and evasive, also very much complement this card being very, very good, but just being able to exert your opponent's characters on turn 5 is so relevant in so many matchups. So one of the best cards we have, and we're running 2 copies of TikTok, who's a 6 cost inkable, 4/7 quest for 1. Obviously a bit more expensive than Iago, although Iago can easily be popped by a Fire the Cannon Cannons, a Strength of the Raging Fire with any amount of characters on board, or something like the Hypnotic Strength, which we're running 4 copies of, draw a card and chosen character gets Challenger 2. So plenty of actions that can pop this Iago, but he's still worth running in high counts. They're hopefully not always going to have an answer, and again, he's just so well statted. But TikTok, a bit of a safer option. We're ramp anyway, so we should be able to play this relatively early. As you and your opponent are just setting up your wall, building up your pieces, and not turning anything sideways, if you can get this down before that combat is initiated, then this is going to go a long way in terms of helping you take control of the board. Our 1-drops are 4 Royal Guard, 4 Basil. Basil's super good with the support keyword, being able to immediately, at the cost of no extra ink, as long as you establish this Basil on turn 1, by the time you get to something like a turn 5 Elsa, then you can support it, and then you're one-shotting a Dumbo or a Genie, or just any of your characters, being able to get them into the sort of numbers that you need them to hit. So Basil is a fantastic card to put down on turn 1. And 4 copies of Royal Guard, who of course gets Challenger 1 for every card you draw. Will always get at least 1 trigger of this ability when you draw for turn, but play something like Hypnotic Strength. Now he's hitting for 5 total if you account for the Challenger 2 and then another Challenger because you drew a card. Or even if you just drew a card that turn due to a Genie or a Dumbo trigger, then this guy's numbers can get pretty high. We're running second star to the right as well, so potential for this Royal Guard to make a mighty swing. I've seen some debate of Royal Guard versus Rafiki. I was having this conversation with Garrick's Lorcana Lair over Ink. I was running Royal Guards, but Garrick was saying he just likes the consistency of knowing that he is going to be hitting 3 with Rafiki, which is absolutely relevant. I'm more of a Royal Guard person myself. Let me know in chat which team are you, Royal Guard or Rafiki. We've got 4 copies of Madam Mim Elephant, a fantastic card in the meta at the moment, our last of the bounce package, so that we can keep characters safe, reset these come into play abilities like Elsa, Hades, Elsa and Belle. A huge stat line and good into the aggro decks to be able to move damage, and especially getting around some of the Amber Steel decks that have things like Nala, that have resist because you're moving damage counters, you get around that. And 4 copies of Belle, who on play moves 3 damage counters from one character to another. We've got some big bodies here, the TikTok, the Elsa, the Hades, the other Elsa, the Mim Elephant, the Iago. Lots of big pools of willpower to hopefully make a challenge, soak up some damage, and then get a big tempo swing turn with Belle while establishing a 4/4 quest for 2. Belle is just fantastic at the moment. Mentioned the Floodborn Elsa a couple of times on play. You exert 2 characters and they can't ready at the start of the next turn. Great for just getting ahead in the race. Maybe against Amber Steel, they've been ahead of you, but you can find the turn to be able to stabilize. Elsa pins down the last couple of characters, and maybe that's just the turn you needed to be ahead in that race, or just be able to clear up the board completely. But in any matchup, the mirror especially, if you can get this down, you know, the freeze effect is really going to go in your favor. And she's a big girl who quests for 3. Of course, Tipo and Sail for our ramp. 2 copies of Finders Keepers to draw 3 cards. I do think this is a bit too slow at the moment. Again, if you're playing it much later in the game when you've got like 6, 7, 8 ink, and you can like chain Finders Keepers along with something else. Maybe the board is at a stalemate and you can afford to do this, but even if the board is at a stalemate, if I'm playing Finders Keepers on 5 and they're playing a character on 5, an Elsa or even a Genie or something, then their board is getting out of control. Maybe not out of control straight away, but you get my point. You want to stay like level or ahead in that race, so you really have to find the right turn to play Finders Keepers. But it is great card draw, and of course 2 copies of Second Star to the right, popularized by Kendall Badette as of late. Chosen player draws 5 cards. It's synced together 10. Plenty of ways that we can do this really early if we were able to go like get on a Tipo, a 4-drop, like a Tipo, a 4-drop, and then another 4-drop or an Elsa, something like that. You can get this online easily, and then your just card advantage should take you the rest of the way. So yeah, a proven deck. Again, just the fact that Hades and Into the Unknown are just our premier removal at the moment is reason enough to play this deck. Not to mention obviously just Dumbo being fantastic and a great engine to work around him. Just all the purple cards, but if you play Blurple, you get to ramp and you get to run the best removal in the game. So yeah, Blurple here to stay. Congratulations to Doug. In top 4, also on Blurple, we've got Richie Young, a Rafiki Believer, 2 keepers, 2 second stars to the right, 3 copies of TikTok, also 2 copies of Vision of the Future, which I do like in the mid to late game, digging you towards that important Elsa, the Dumbo when you need it, like whatever, the removal through Hades or Elsa. It's just nice to be able to like look at the top 5 and craft the piece that you need. I have seen some arguments of this being develop your brain instead, just to help you if you miss turn 2 ramp post alter, then knowing that you've got a turn 1 to help dig you a little bit, like help you find that turn 2 ramp, because if you miss it, that's pretty bad. But I do like a Vision of the Future, and we're also seeing here 2 copies of Scrooge McDuck, 4-cost inkable 5/5 quest for 2. And again, any 4-cost character in Blurple is infinitely better just because we can play it on turn 3. So another good looking deck. Congratulations to Richie. In top 4 we've got Jose, another Rafiki Believer, 4 copies of Finders Keepers, only 1 copy of Second Star to the right, and Jose is going with that with 3 copies of that Develop Your Brain. As I just said, you know, it's not as deep a dig as Vision of the Future, but it's like, look at the top 2 and take one for a 1 cost is still pretty good. Maybe that's fine. Like, we build our decks consistently, right? So we're hoping that we're seeing the cards when we want to see them. And yes, of course, if you miss turn 2 ramp, this can help you dig towards it. But looks good. Congratulations to Jose. Next up, Chris Fisher, a Rafiki Believer. Once again, 4 copies of Finders Keepers. And here we are seeing 3 copies of that Ursula Voice Stealer with Sing For Me. 5 cost uninkable. Sorry, inkable. 5 cost inkable. Man, this would be terrible if it was uninkable. Tis inkable. 3/4 quest for 1. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing ready character. So that alone is like, it's so important to be able to initiate that initial trade sequence, whether it's like popping an opposing genie, a Dumbo, or even just exerting something that aggro's got on the board, like a lady or a Nala or whatever it might be. But if you are able to get this ability off to sing a song, our only song is Into the Unknown, but that'd be pretty much good enough. Like, if you're playing this on turn 5, hopefully your opponent has played a 3-cost character by now. So, like, I don't think this is unreasonable just to expect to get off like a few times in the day, but a lot of the time it's just the fact that it's exerting a character is going to be good enough. 3 seems like a lot, but did very well for Chris, also playing 4 copies of that Scrooge McDuck, 4 Finders Keepers. So a lot of the Blurple players disagreeing with me and saying Finders Keepers may be slow, but still worth the inclusion, Baker. I hear ya. Congratulations to Chris. Next up in top 8, we've got Victor Torres, another Rafiki Believer, only 3 copies of Basil. We're seeing 1 copy of that Magic Feather, 2-cost inkable item. When you play it, chosen character of yours gains Evasive, which of course is the name of the game, combining with Dumbo, or just like creating evasive threats like Hades and Elsa as an evasive sounds annoying, or Belle, or we're just answering an opposing evasive character. But synergy with Dumbo certainly makes this a lot better. And we're seeing 2 copies of Baymax Armored Companion. We saw this in last week, words are hard, popularized by Zenulus from Team Maelstrom, who went on an absolute tear with Blurple, running 2 of these Baymax and very much enforcing, yo, this was a good card and I will continue to run it. You can't stop me. 5-cost inkable, 2/6, quest for 2. When you play this character and when he quests, you may remove up to 2 damage from another chosen character of yours. Gain 1 lore for each 1 damage removed this way. I talked about when we looked at Belle, lots of characters here with a wide pool of willpower to take advantage of this, and Baymax absolutely going to be able to do the same thing. It's a card that not everyone's going to be see coming yet. Like, it's not mainstream that everyone is playing Baymax in the Blurple deck, so you could definitely catch some people off guard with that. So I like it a lot. Congratulations to Victor. Next up in top 16, we have the legendary Dick Burns. This is actually the first time I'm looking at his list. Obviously, I've copied them all into Dreamborn format from Ink decks, but I don't really look at them properly until like we get to this moment. And yeah, I knew Dick Burns was doing very well. Wasn't able to play his. I don't know. I know that he couldn't do day 2. So he knew that he had a limit to how far he could get anyway. I don't know if he like dropped out before his top 16, or maybe he played it and he lost. But even if he'd have won, he had to drop after that. I don't know. Regardless, Dick Burns did very well. A good showing for Forbidden Mountain in general. Quite a lot of cards in this list, and one thing jumps out at me straight away that I did not know he was playing. Is this true? Is this wrong? I need to double check. But hey, we've got Genie, Wonderful Trickster, 7-cost inkable, 4/7, quest for 2, shift 5, which is relevant because we do be running genies. And we've got whenever you play a card, draw a card, which is a pretty fun ability, but at the end of your turn, put all the cards in your hand at the bottom of your deck in any order. So play a card, draw a card is pretty good. Obviously, the more low-cost cards we've got, then this is pretty good. This is pretty good for digging if we've got a nice high amount of ink. But the very obvious caveat that you have to lose your hand at the end of the turn, put it in the bottom of your deck. So you get to a point if you've put this Genie on the board where you just play this deck like a dock deck, where you're just emptying your hand as much as you can. But Yeah, this is a super cool inclusion. I hope it's true. 2 copies of that Ursa the Voice Stealer I do know is true. I saw him with a copy of this. Love to see it. And 1 random spicy copy of one of my favorite cards in the game. Everybody's got a weakness. 4-cost inkable. Move 1 damage counter from each damaged character you have in play to chosen opposing character. Draw a card for each damage counter move this way. So, like, there's some times where you're going to get maybe some value from this, even if you're not moving a lot of damage and drawing a lot of cards, like a couple of things that might only have 1 or 2 willpower, and the fact that we're moving damage gets around resist, so that could be relevant, or even if we're just targeting an illusion like Iago, but obviously the high roll here is we want to have 3, 4, 5 characters wide. We've curved out. We can create a turn where we can put a few damage on them, and then everybody's got a weakness and shoot something for 3, 4, 5 damage, pop it, draw that many cards. I absolutely love this card. And Dick, if you're watching, let us know down in chat, like, how much did this come up? I'm going to guess not loads, but hopefully it did something. Couple of copies of Second Star to the right, 4 copies of Into the Unknown, but yeah, other than that, a lot of the usual suspects. So looks good. Congratulations to Dick. Also on Blurple in top 16, we've got Robert Midgley, a Rafiki believer, an Ursula believer, only 1 copy of Elsa in here, a Vision of the Future believer, 2 copies of Second Star to the right, overall a really tight looking list. It looks good. Congratulations to Robert. Nearly there in top 16, we've got Tyler. This deck name on Ink was a shout out to JDRR, a very, very famous Blurple player in the community. Shout out to the Flower Farm. We've got a 2-line special. We're running 3 copies of Donald Duck focused Flatfoot, who ramps you on play, and he's a 3/4 quest for 2. Pretty reasonable. I was trying this out over the weekend. He's a pretty cool character. 4 copies of Scrooge McDuck for a bit more aggro in here. 2 copies of Monstro, who's an 8-cost inkable 6/8 quest for 2 with Rush, and you can discard a card to ready him, and he can't quest for the rest of the turn. Nice way of wiping just a big opposing character, or even wiping a whole board if you've been able to build up a big hand. And in place of Basil, we're playing 4 copies of Helping Hand. 1-cost uninkable. Chosen character gains support this turn. Draw a card. So this can fill, obviously, a similar role to what Basil is doing, being able to boost up your Elsa, your Genie, whatever it is, to be like, it's a math fixer, right? Obviously, the negatives are, 1, this is an uninkable, and 2, it's not a character that's already established to the board, so whatever turn, you have to add 1, like with Basil, you don't need any extra ink to apply support, whereas here you need 1. Now, in some to perhaps many cases, this is just going to be fine, and you don't like do this big turn until you have the ink to pay for all of this, which is fine. The fact that this draws you a card obviously makes it infinitely better. It's great dig. So yeah, super interesting. I really trust JDRR to know what he's talking about, so it will be interesting to see if many players adopt the Helping Hand as we move forward. But overall, this just looks like a much faster list. With the Scrooge and the Donald and our 1-drops being Diablos, meaning that we can quest a little more frivolously. There we go. I have a little bit of a lisp on my THs. Sometimes I just say instead of th. Let me know if you've noticed. Anyway, deck looks good. Congratulations to Tyler. Next up in top 16, we've got Sergio, a Rafiki, and a Royal Guard believer. We want those options, my guys. A Baymax believer, Vision of the Future, 2 Elsa, and pretty much the usual suspects. Congratulations to Sergio. And our final Blurple list in top 16, we have Ben Fishman from the Forbidden Mountain. Meeting him for the first time was absolutely wonderful. Again, this is the Ben that was coaching me in a friendly match against Kurt when I was on Blurple. Yeah, a great performance from him. The standout card, 1 copy of Camilo Madrigal, 6-cost inkable, 3/7, quest for 1, and Imitate. Whenever this character quests, you may gain lore equal to the lore of chosen other character of yours. Return that character to your hand. So, kind of expensive, but we're blue, so we can probably warrant it. 3/7 is a very tricky stat line. This ability is on quest, so you're always getting his lore and then the lore of something else. Now, if we, we've got perfectly reasonable 2 questers here. Genies, Bells, Baymax, Hades, and even the 3 quest in the Elsa. But the fact that it's also bouncing it back to your hand, we already talked about that being relevant with Madam Mim Elephant. A lot of great come into play abilities here. 2 develop your brain as opposed to the Vision of the Future, 2 Second Star, 2 Finders Keepers, 2 copies of Scrooge, 1 of that Baymax, and we've only got 6 character 1-drops. Of course, develop your brain is a 1-drop, but yeah, just 2 Royal Guard and 4 copies of Basil. But yeah, Ben, really, really great guy, great player, great to get to watch him and to meet him. Congratulations to him. Alright, we've got 2 more decks to look at, both different in combination. So starting off in top 16, we've got Cameron with some blue steel allies. So some really fun stuff here. Let's start off talking about Scar, finally king, Hamlet himself. 5-cost uninkable. I think I accidentally called him Hamilton in the past. Hamlet. 5 cost uninkable, 5/4 quest for 2. Your ally characters get +1 strength, which is quite a lot of our characters. And at the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may draw cards equal to the strength of chosen ally character of yours. If you do, choose and discard 2 cards and banish that character. So kind of slow. This has to survive the whole turn, but with the lack of removal that we have at the moment, with the exception of Hades, or if they into the Elsa plus into the unknown, like there are ways to remove this immediately, but against a couple, like against Amber Steel, you're always fine. Against Amethyst Steel, maybe they're able to Elsa and then hit you for enough strength, but the high roll here is pretty good. If this thing can survive, and then we have to have another chosen ally that we were able to establish, then we banish that, we draw cards equal to their strength, then we discard 2 and banish that character. So we are -1 in terms of like board presence, but we're potentially drawing a lot of cards. You have to discard 2. So for this to be worth it, I think you need to be drawing 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7. We've got a couple of characters here with some high strength, but we also, very importantly, we have access to the support keyword. So I think this Scar is really cool. Also complementing the ally engine, we have 4 copies of Jasmine, Resourceful Infiltrator, who's a 1-cost inkable, 1/2 quest for 1. On play, you give resist 1 to another character into the start of your turn, which is a pretty good on-play ability for a 1-cost. And the Floodborn is the Steady Strategist. Strategist or Strategist? 4-cost inkable, 2/5 quest for 1. Shift 2, pretty cool. And whenever this character quests, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal an ally character, put it to your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So on the play, it's very likely you're going to get at least 2 quests out of this and hopefully find 2 characters. You play Jasmine, they play something, you shift, you immediately quest. I don't think there's much they're going to be able to... No, I suppose if they've got Hypnotic Strength, I suppose they need to play a character on turn 1 that can hit for 3, like a Rafiki or a Rule Guard, and then Hypnotic Strength. So that is a punish, but outside of that, you should be getting at least 2 quests on the play at least. And in the event that you do that, she has done so much work. But there's also a nice little curve involving Pleakley, Scientific Expert. 3-cost inkable, 3/4 quest for 1. On play, put one of your characters into your Inkwell face down and exerted. Of course, if you've shifted this Jasmine and then she goes into your Inkwell via Pleakley, or if she's Hades into the unknown, whatever it is, then both these cards will go into the Inkwell. The Jasmine, the 4-cost and the 1-cost. So that's some pretty cool ramp. So even if Jasmine wouldn't survive beyond 1 quest, you can just go shift Jasmine on 2. If it will survive, then quest for a turn. If not, just leave it, and then on turn 3 you quest, get an ally, play your Pleakley, ramp up. Again, this depends on what you're against, and board state dependent, but it's incredible ramp, so you'll have to see it. 4 copies of Mulan to filter through, find the pieces that we need. 4 Doc, which is going to be one of our best ways of drawing outside of a nice big hit with Scar. 4 copies of Mr. Smee, who's a 3/2 and gets evasive during your turn. Again, it's important to have evasive answers. 4 copies of Genie, Satisfied Dragon, who's one of our best evasive answers. 3/4 and gaining evasive during our turn is fantastic for like taking out a Dumbo and surviving. Even just like a lot of 2-drops like Calhoun's, or there's a lot of Raja, the illusion going around, so this is really cool. And we're seeing 2 copies of Lilo, no Jafar, Aspiring Ruler, instead going for the Lilo, which gives Challenger 2 to all of your characters. So more of a high roll here. It's going to affect multiple characters, so hopefully multiple characters are trading up, but then you're leaving behind a pretty underwhelming body. But she's a 3-cost, she can sing Strength of Raging Fire, and the high roll for this is very, very high. I'm running 3 copies of Chicha. The second time you ink during a turn, you may draw a card. Now, we're not running Sail or Tipo. Our ways of ramping are Pleakley and Donald Duck, but those in themselves are pretty good. But very importantly, she has the support keyword, so we can quest, add that 2 strength to another one of our allies, and then hopefully draw even more cards courtesy of Scar. I'm running 4 copies of Bagheera, 5-cost inkable, 4/3 quest for 2. Bodyguard, card, and during an opponent's turn when this character is banished, deal 2 damage to each opposing character, which we know to be a very strong ability. It's a bit situational, but even at worst, you're sticking a fairly cheap 4/3 quest for 2 body, and he's inkable. I quite like it. Hades, obviously the premier removal. 4 copies of Tinkerbell is a fantastic mid-range character to freeze the board, and 4 copies of Vincenzo, who on play does 3 damage to a character, which is a lot of damage, and leaving behind a 2/8 quest for 3, and of course 4 copies of Strength of a Raging Fire. This looks so fun. I really want to try out this deck. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but I really want to. Super glad to see this make top 16. I think it could have made an even deeper run, if I'm honest. Very good player. I hope we see it more. Congratulations to Cameron. And our final deck to look at today in top 16, we have Alex Coffey with some good old-fashioned Ruby Amethyst. Obviously, my pride and joy, these colours, and we looked at some lists last week where only 1 Ruby Amethyst made top 8, and it was indeed the Flinger Dinger archetype. Lots of characters who take damage or are able to benefit from damage being on them or move damage around. This be a damage matters deck. That being the case, we've got 4 copies of Everybody's Got a Weakness, which is one of our best removal pieces and best way to draw cards. 3 copies of Hypnotic Strength, again, a great math fixer for our combat tricks. 2 copies of Lose the Way is really cool. 2 cost inkable. You can exert chosen character. I spoke earlier about how important it is to be able to exert characters down at the moment, and like most decks, it's not happening until turn 5, maybe earlier if you're a ramp deck, but Elsa is the main way that we're doing that, so this can really catch people off guard and pop something sooner than they're ready for it to be popped. Maybe they play the Tiana, but before they're able to turn it sideways, you can lose the way on like the most formidable questing threat. And again, just extra copies of cards that exert. And you can also discard a card and make that character be frozen for a turn, which I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. 2 copies of Hades, the Ruthless Tyrant, one of my favourite new cards. 7 cost uninkable, 3/6 quest for 2. On play and on quest, you can put 2 damage on one of your characters to draw 2 cards. Damage matters. We've got Everybody's Got a Weakness. We're running copies of Belle here, who's going to move that damage around. We've got 4 copies of Queen of Hearts, who gets an extra 3 strength when she's got damage on her. A fantastic 2-drop. Good combining her with Hades. Good combining her with Hypnotic Strength. So we can definitely do things with this damage. We're also running 2 copies of Prince John, who's a 3 cost uninkable 5/5 quest for 1 and takes a damage whenever your opponent plays a character. Just a really cheap beat stick to put on the board, and likely that he's going to take at least a damage or 2 straight away, and we are hopefully going to use that damage courtesy of Belle or Everybody's Got a Weakness, or another card that in my last video I said I didn't get, and I have since tried her out. In fact, this is actually the deck I started with. I made a couple of tweaks myself. I'll pop it up on, I can't remember what they were off the top of my head, but I'm popping it up on the screen right now. The Ruby Amethyst deck that I was playing, so I did change some things around, but I did stick with the form of a Gothel. I get it. I do get it. Like when she pops off, like she really does, she can put in some incredible work against that. Like sometimes the turns that you can create with her just feel unfair if you've got like 3, 4, 5 characters on board, all with some damage, and you're making multiple challenges because it triggers for every time you challenge. So I get Mother Gothel now, and again, she's a 4 willpower, which is a nice pool of health to take damage from a Hades. Something like, I'd love to see a Madame Medusa in this deck, to be honest. I think that's the main thing. I think that would have been one of the main changes I made, to be honest. I like a bit of Madame Medusa. But yeah, Mother Gothel, I get it. 4 copies of Mulan, who enters with damage that we can use, but we're also running 2 copies of the Floodborn Elite Archer, who can shift for 5, 2/6 quest for 2, gets +3 strength on the turn you shift her, and when she does damage to an opposing character in a challenge, you can do that same damage to 2 other characters. If they do not respect the shift, you can absolutely blow boards wide open. I think I actually went up to 3 copies of Mulan. Not that you need that many, but just to increase the odds that I actually see it, because this can really pop off. We've got 4 copies of Lumiere, who gets +1 strength to all your characters. Really nice. Like, this can also help with keeping things out of the range for Under the Sea, something like that. I mean, they probably play Heads Held High and it ends up not mattering, but it can matter. But just as a math fixer, I really like Lumiere. 4 copies of Palace Guard makes sense. Again, we want characters that can soak up this damage, even if it's just through making some challenges and then playing Everybody's Got a Weakness, which is one of the best high rolls. Plus Palace Guard can more often than not get out a couple of safe quests at the beginning of the game without being answered straight away. So yeah, in a Challenge Matters deck, I think this is absolutely a card that you need to be running 4 of. And 2 copies of Diablo, just again another really safe character character to be able to put down. You can quest into anything. You can put the damage on him courtesy of Hades. Just Diablo's just super solid. Of course, the Dumbos and the evasive engine that you'd expect. 2 copies of Goofy Flying Goof is really nice. 6 cost uninkable, 5/5 quest for 1 with Rush and Evasive. I think I took this out of my version of Ruby Amethyst, just because I think we already have so many great evasive answers. This having Rush is obviously great, but it's another uninkable. I don't think it's a very good top deck. I don't know. I do quite like Goofy, but I opted not to play him. Another card that I opted not to play, but I was tempted by, and I do like it. 2 copies of Elsa, Snow Queen. 3 cost inkable, 2/3 quests for 1, and you can exert chosen opposing character. We've talked a lot about the relevance of exerting characters. Elsa plus Lose the Way plus this Elsa. I think I didn't play the Elsa Snow Queens, but I did play Lose the Way, because I do get it. My problem with Elsa is, like, she turns sideways once, and then they're probably getting a value trade out of her. Maybe that exert that you did was worth it. I don't know. I'm half sold on Elsa. Let me know what you think of Elsa down in the comments, but performed very well for Alex. And we're running just 2 copies of Maui Half Shark. No way to give this Rush, and not the widest pool of actions. There's 9, but hey, if you're getting back one of these in, then just inking it, then that's fine. It's a great stat line on an evasive character. I think I cut Sharks, but I think they're reasonable to run. Overall, so happy that this deck did well. There was another player on Ruby Amethyst that didn't make top 16, but they were on table 1 for round 4 or 5, doing really well. I think they fell off the last couple of rounds, but they were playing, again, a very similar deck, but they were playing the Mother Gothels. I really like this. Again, I would like to see Mother Gothel in here. And there's certainly something to be said for, you know, I don't think all decks necessarily need to be 2-line specials and all 4s. Like, I think it is slightly underestimated, like, having some cards only be, like, 2s and 3s based on, like, how often you want to see them during games. You're giving yourself a wider pool of options for maybe a little less consistency, but overall, I really, really like it, and I'm super glad that it made top 16, so congratulations to Alex. And that is it. So a huge shout out to all those players, and yes, Blurple is absolutely insane at the moment. I'm very shocked that we didn't see any Amethyst Steel in that top 16. Honestly, this just kind of reminds me of Chapter 1 format, like when there were just like 2, maybe 3, like very clear best decks, and like you weren't seeing anything else at tournaments. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more sets and for things to hopefully diversify a bit. But that being said, I don't hate seeing a lot of mirrors. Like, if I had a choice, yes, we'd have a bit of everything. But I quite like mirrors. I think there's a lot of skill that comes into a mirror match. I'm not outright defending the format, but I'm still having fun playing. I know a lot of other players that are enjoying the format, but also share the sentiment of like, yeah, it's fine, but can't wait to get some more cards and to like try some new tricks. But let me know what you think down below. But yeah, to talk about my weekend, I had such an incredible time. If I met you, thank you so much for having a conversation with me, whether it was just a chat or it was a photo or getting something signed. Honestly, it was such a good weekend. Got there on the Thursday in the evening. My flight left at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon UK time, and I landed... It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, maybe 9 o'clock in the evening, but Kawa and Kim they got in not long before me, and we were picked up by Matt, who was the one that was mostly responsible for like bringing in the European casters and had been my main point of contact. A huge shout out to Matt, really wonderful guy, and really went above and beyond to make sure that we were like taken care of, and again, just so grateful to be brought out. But yeah, he picked us up, took us to the B&B that we were staying, and we would be... Did we meet JDZ that night? I can't remember if we met him that night or if it was the following morning. Nonetheless, yeah, I think it was that night. Hooked up with JDZ, obviously great to see him. The next morning we went out. We were going to be going to the shop later on in the day because it was like a meet and greet with the casters, and we were recording Allies on the other side, which we'll get to. But yeah, JD, there's going to be footage playing in the background while I'm yapping here. But yeah, JDZ, I was like, I want a typical American dining experience. Like, sort me out, brother. He was like, I got you. Took me, Kawa, and Kim to like this really like retro old school American diner, and I was like, I want pancakes. I'm having pancakes. It was beautiful, had a lovely meal. I did look at the waitress in absolute shock, and like she was trying to poison me when I asked for milk, and she pointed at the creamer on the table, because that ain't the same. But nonetheless, a really nice meal. JDZ then took us to Walmart, my first time in a Walmart. Alright, so this is my first ever experience going to a Walmart, but I've been advised that I'm not getting the full experience. JD, what's wrong with this Walmart?
All right, this Walmart is too nice, okay? Listen, if you go to some Walmarts, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to hate on Walmart in any way, okay? But some Walmarts are better than others, and this is one of the high-tier Walmarts. And I think, just looking at it, it's so clean and orderly. I feel robbed. I feel robbed. I walk in, and I see multiple employees already. That's insane. This Walmart is OP. Shout out to this Walmart, man. There's nothing on the floor. There's no bodies laying around. The floor's clean. This is an OP Walmart, man.
So I'm getting the unauthentic Walmart experience. But anyway, then we went to the venue, which was really cool. Got to meet some players at the meet and greet, and then recorded Allies on the Other Side with Colour and Garrick and JDZ, which was a lot of fun. I won't spoil how it ended. I will link it down below. It's on the Podcana YouTube channel, and the entire weekend is available courtesy of either Podcana or Garrick's Lorcana Lair or JDZ's Twitch. So if you want to watch back any of the event, but I definitely recommend going back to watch Allies on the Other Side. It was about an hour and a half, but it was a lot of fun. We had a really good time. And then that evening we went out for something to eat. I'd been begging for us to all just sit down and have a nice meal. We ended up going to this pub and getting pizzas, and everybody's orders came out except mine. And then the way it was like, I'm so sorry, my friend, I forgot to put your order through. And I'd ordered a beer at this point, which I was halfway through drinking, and he was like, so your beer's on me. Anyway, my food came out 20 minutes later, so it was fine. Met the artist that night as well. There was the artist for Second Start of the Right Enchanted and a few other pieces. A guy called Saul, really, really nice guy. He was staying at our B&B as well, so we met him that night. And then the next day was the main event, and I got to meet a lot more people. Again, shout out to people like Sky I was meeting. Shout out to Dan and Dick Burns, who I was meeting for the first time, along with Lizard Kitty and the whole Forbidden Mountain. Mate, I could just go on and name all the people that were there. It was such a hype room. I was so pleased to meet people. It was such an honor. It's always such an honor, man. But I want to show off a couple of gifts I got. One very special shout out to Steph, who drew me as Ratigan, which I'm absolutely in love with. Yeah, her name's Steph, and her business is Bashful's TCG Workshop. Just came up to me to say hello, wanted a picture, etc., and was like, I drew this for you. And then she had another one that she wanted me to sign. Amazing. What an incredible gift. I was so honoured and stoked to get that. And then sat down and spoke with Dan from the Forbidden Mountain for the first time, a meeting very much overdue. And he presented me with a present from his wonderful wife. And he actually called her to, so that she could see me get it for the first time and see my reaction. And bad gold, was there a big reaction? Look at this, which she made me, guys. Look at this scar. That is absolutely amazing. I could put this on a jacket. I could put this on a pair of trousers. What I'm actually going to do is frame it and put it on the wall. But I was so happy with that. Just again, a huge shout out to you, Dan and Kylie. Honestly, what a present. And then another one that I got from, I showed this off in the stream, from Matt, who brought us all out, got the cast as a piece of art, and I got this amazing Jafar piece, which I'm so happy with. I also want to give a shout out to Mattified, who I'm going to have my Lorcana Villain playmats available for people to buy soon on his website. I'm going to be one of his ambassadors. But for this event, he sent me a few of the playmats that are going to be coming out on the site, and we were able to give them out over the weekend for raffles. And then we did a couple on stream, and I actually have a couple here that I still need to send to people. But I wanted to give a special shout out to Mattified for doing that for me. And then, had the Sunday, the last tournament day. We all went out in the evening for a drink. Again, and also a huge shout out to one of my personal friends, Jeffrey, or Mod as I call him, who's someone I've known online for 5 years and played Dungeons & Dragons with online for like 5 years, but we've never met in person. And he came to Ink Inc. especially to meet me for the first time, so it was amazing meeting him for the first time, and was able to hang out with him a little bit in the evening and introduce him to some of the other casters. So shout out to you, Jeff. It was great to meet you, mate. Amazing weekend. And then on the Monday, we checked out the B&B. JDZ had left the night before, or like 4 o'clock in the morning. And then, yeah, we checked out the B&B, me, Kawa, and Kim. We were picked up by Garrick. We went to get coffee and do a couple of things. And then we went to meet Kurt Spies, who actually lives in Baltimore. We swapped over to his car. He took us into the city, and we went down to the pier and we fed the ducks and we looked around, and it was such good vibes, man. It was really cool to see the area, to see Baltimore. The rest of the crew went for a meal in a seafood restaurant, and I don't really do seafood, so I was like, yo, you cook, enjoy your meal. I'm just going to go walk around on my own. Like, it was great being with the gang, but I was like, I want some time to myself. I just, like, while they were eating, I just wandered around, kind of just took everything in. I went to this shop and bought myself some ice cream, and I sat on the pier and ate some ice cream. And like, oh, mate, it was such good vibes. I had an amazing time. And then, yeah, Kurt Spies took us back to the airport. Kim and Kawa went off first, and then I was not too far behind. And then did the journey home. This journey home from America is the worst jet lag I've had so far since I've been traveling. Obviously, when it's European events, I don't really get jet lag because it's not that long. But obviously, Worlds was a big trip, but my body clock got caught up pretty quickly. Like, I got a bit sick after the weekend, but I didn't put that down to the jet lag. I put that down to just the intensity of the weekend overall. My plane from Baltimore was at like 9 p.m. And then when I landed in the UK 8 hours later at like 9 a.m. in the morning UK time. I'd only slept for about 2 hours on the plane, so I was absolutely shattered by that evening. And then I woke up the next day and I still felt awful. So that's why this video is a day later than I promised it was going to be. Apologies for that. Overall, it was amazing. It was so great to meet some of the Americans that I haven't had the chance to do so yet, and it made me all the more excited for DLC Milwaukee. Obviously, I'm super excited for Bologna and getting to see my European brethren again, whether it's new faces or old. But I've met more of the European crew than the American crew, right? So I'm hoping come Milwaukee, I'll be able to meet even more people, and that's going to be an amazing experience. But Bologna is indeed the next DLC stop, so you better know I'm ready for that too. Technically, my next stop is Cardiff at the end of the month, casting along with Kim and Spessy, which is going to be a lot of fun. But then, yeah, we've got a DLC month, Bologna and Milwaukee. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to leave it here. I think we've gone to about an hour. But yeah, just thank you so much for having me, Ink Inc. And to everyone I met, thank you so much for just making it an amazing experience. There'll be another video in 24 to 48 hours where we will look at Charlie's and maybe the junior deck list from Ink Inc. as well. We'll definitely do both those things this week. I just don't know what order I'm going to do it, but expect more content before the end of the week. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support, and we'll see you soon.